Hello YouTubers, welcome back to a brand new video, and I, Red-Pilled American, am going to present to you the latest discussions about tariffs that we're hearing about in the news. So my fellow subscribers and any other YouTubers that end up seeing this, feel free to listen and watch and listen. For now, I'm just going to give my overview on the whole tariff thing. I do plan to talk about the details in some future videos, but on really what it's actually happening. But for now, I'm just going to give my overview. So here we go. So I'm going to start with what is a tariff, and in simple terms, a tariff is a tax on an imported good that was made in another country. And it really is a tax on a corporation because they move their jobs overseas. So, yeah, if a company, like for example, Ford moves their, the auto company moves their vehicles factories overseas, and then they sell them here, they have to pay a tariff for selling them here. Well, Donald Trump had, he made his whole campaign promise on implementing tariffs. And for the last several months, that's been one big thing he was going to do, was implement tariffs. And, well, tariffs, I think tariffs are good, and here's why. Tariffs, here's the thing, tariffs been used for millenniums. They've always been used. They've always been used as some way to, because they're also used they were kind of used to fund the government. It brought revenue to those countries that were using the tariff. That's how a lot of countries would actually kind of fund their government, through the tariffs. In fact, that's how we were actually funding the government for a while, were with tariffs, until federal income tax came in, and that's when that kind of changed everything. So, and all that. So again, are tariffs good? Again, yes. I think they bring a check and balance to, they bring kind of it's a negotiation tactic. It kind of creates a deal and a discussion with the countries to have a discussion to kind of maybe make a fair trade deal. But ultimately, it's a negotiation tactic to basically incentivize companies to come back here, because if they have to pay a tariff, they're going to want to come back here, and you're already seeing that in effect. A lot of companies are coming back already, and you're going to see a lot more soon. So right now, you're seeing a lot of outrage in the news right now, and funny enough, it seems the baby boomers, the people in their 60s and 70s, seem to be these wealthy ones that that you're hearing about in the news. They all seem to be the ones that are the most anti-tariff, because it's going to drive up prices, and all that, to the GDP and all that. But it's like, well, here's the thing, big freaking hoop. So a few people are not making their profits, and some wealthy people might, it might cost some profits a little bit because of tariffs. Big freaking who. You're talking about the American people who were sucked dry, who were left for dead, basically, that were sold out by our ruling class just in the name of the GDP for cheap goods, while leaving us here basically with nothing left. And so people are outraged by that. See, tariffs, it's important to protect our American jobs. That's the bottom line. This video, we need to protect American jobs. That was Trump's message, and that's what what I believe is important. And a lot of America sent Trump a mandate when they elected him, that they agreed we need to protect our jobs, and we need to make American. We need to be self-reliant again. So my point is, as for prices going up, yeah, you may see a price increase. I think it's guaranteed in some cases, but let's face it, you'll only pay a tariff generally if only if it's made in another country. And guess what? You may have options now because you will have more things that are made in America. So you just buy the American made product and you won't have to pay the tariff. In fact, and yes, it's technically a consumption tax because you'll have to pay a little bit of a tax. For example, you'll have to pay $60 instead of $50 because you have the tariff. For example, like on a pair of shoes, you may have to pay 60 instead of 50 because it has a little tariff on it. You may have to pay, you may have to pay $2 instead of $1. You may have to pay $2 instead of $1.50 for an avocado because of the tariff on it. But let's face it, I think Americans care way more about protecting their jobs than a few avocados. So all that fear about avocados, yeah, right. You guys can just get out of here on that. So, and the nice part about tariffs is that, see, tariffs gives you a little bit more freedom because you'll know what you need to buy versus, see, Americans are smart. Okay, yes, some things will be more expensive, but that's why Americans will buy what they need rather than not what they need. And let's face it, even with all the inflation, how many Americans were still buying stuff anyways that were expensive? So what's the sudden outrage now about higher prices? But at the end of the day, we know we're headed for good in the long run because it's going to prosper Americans by bringing the jobs back. And so it's important. And for future generations like Gen Z, people who, I'm a young millennial, so I was born in 95. The Gen Z generation started in 97. So I'm kind of, a zillennial almost in a way. We've been impacted by it the most as Gen Z, and that's why Trump finally appealed to them as a Republican, which is rare because, we're having a hard time getting jobs, and we're either having to compete with foreigners just because they rather pick them for cheap labor. And, well, they're not staying here. They're getting shipped into other countries, so we can't even work them because they're not staying here. So, yes, so yeah, that's my thoughts on tariffs. I mean, again, I think, again, my point is people know what they voted for, and, people, I think it's worth it because at the end of the day, at least with the consumption tax, which if you're going to have a tax, that is the fairest tax because it gives you more freedom than with the income tax right now where, we don't even know where the hell it's going. So I think it's well worth it. And guess what? If it's made here, you won't have any tax. So think of it that way. So, but like I said, that's kind of all I have for now. I think, I do think, the Republicans that want to resist Trump, because a lot of the Republicans as a whole haven't really embraced the whole tariff thing, and that needs to change. Trump literally brought a whole coalition of voters that are, technically in the GOP, the Trumplican base. We're a Trumplican party now. It's time to adapt, or you'll never win an election again if you betray him, especially on this issue. It's really important. So better straighten up. We need to protect our jobs. That's the most important thing. See, the great part about this is Trump's not dumb, and Trump has figured out other ways to try to increase wages, which the biggest one is trying to abolish the federal income tax. I heard a lot of solutions. One was to wipe out any income tax, exempt any federal income tax for anyone who makes less than $150,000 a year. Think about that for a minute. That would prosper America, and just, or even altogether, I think his long term or his ultimate goal is to abolish the income tax as a whole and try to use the tariffs to fund the government, which we used to do, by the way. Do you know what that would do to the economy? It would not only prosper us, not only other countries will prosper us. So even if a avocado did cost $2, Americans aren't going to feel it because they have more money in their pocket. And they have way less of it under Biden. So, in fact, the tariffs are still, even if there's a little inflation on the tariff, they're still cheaper than what it has been with Biden. So, anyway, ignore the media. The media is just trying to make you all fear. They want you to resist Trump. They want you to hate Trump. They can't help themselves. They've lost all the ideas, and all they have left is fear. And unfortunately, people believe it. They think with emotion, but try to think long term. Think American. Think what it's gonna do for future generation. Think, so if you're middle aged, what could it do for us? How could it positively impact us in a positive way? Because now we can actually enjoy the American dream, because we finally have the jobs again that we can go to, and so think of it that way. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it now on the tariffs for now. Like I said, I will have some more discussions eventually on this. Have some more, but this is my overview on tariffs for now. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, please subscribe. Please share this with others. I would love to grow my following, and also click the bell for notifications if you decide to subscribe, if you choose to. Anyway, have a great day. Red Pilled American out.